Good evening, everybody. This is the Disability YODAA, and welcome to YODAA Live. And this is my SSDI Q&A. I'm launching it tonight or this evening or this afternoon if you're on the Pacific or Mountain in those zones. And I'm just excited. I'm glad to get this going and make this happen for all of you. So if you're on chat right now, go ahead and say hello. Let me know where you're from. If you want to just put city and state or the state we live in, just check in with me so I can kind of see where everyone's coming from. I just want to say welcome to everybody who's here on chat right now. And I'm so, like I said, so excited and so grateful to all of you for showing up on this first YODAA Live. I want to say thank you because as of right now, we are almost at 3,100 subscribers on my channel. I want to thank all of you. If you have subscribed to my channel, thank you so much for helping me get to that point. It's getting over 3,000. Last year, I launched this here in March of last year, 2023. And my first video was the first week of March. And I see Jackie H from Orlando, Florida. Welcome, Jackie. Kevin from Hemet. Okay. All right. I think I know what that is. All right. Welcome, Kevin. I see Lewis here. I see Fingerprinting Gurus. Yes, sir. Good to see you, my friend. And I just want to show my appreciation to everybody for helping me to get to almost 3,100 subscribers. And it was a journey getting to this point, but I'm so glad that I was able to do that with your help and continue to help me spread the word about my channel to everyone, especially for the YODAA Live SSDI Q&A, which I will be doing every month on the first Thursday of each month. We will be doing this. So let your friends, your enemies, neighbors, people that you know and love that need help with. Yeah, I knew where you were from, Kevin. I knew it was him. I know. I'm from California, man. I'm from the Bay Area. Calvin from Hollywood, Florida. Welcome, my friend. So with this Q&A, how I'm going to do this is like this. You get one question a month. All right, one question a month, because I want to make sure that we give people an opportunity to get their question answered. Hey, Celia, good to see you again from California. All right. And one question per month. You can submit those questions to gregbrinkley.org/my question, and I will put that in the chat so you all know where to go to submit your questions during the month. And that way, the people who are submitting questions ahead of time will get first priority. And this will also give me an opportunity to research some questions that need some researching, because some of the questions may not necessarily relate to Social Security or disability. I'll do my best to answer them, but there's no guarantee that I may be able to do that. So I will usually defer to either the National 800 number for Social Security, which is 1-800-772-1213. I also will encourage you to visit your local Social Security office. And if you are working with an attorney or an advocate, you can also ask them on specific questions that are not SSDI related. So my lane is specifically SSDI, although I worked on SSI claims for disability as well. Harrison, all right. Good to see you. And Desiree, yes. And we're going to give you calls soon because I have some things to share with you. Now, it's really important when you submit your question each month on my platform that you submit your YouTube handle. That's important because I don't want to share any information about you that you don't want to share. So just put your YouTube handle on there, and as I ask the question and post it on the live stream, you would just see your YouTube handle on there. So that's important to know. Also, if you submit questions in chat other than tonight, moving forward, there's no guarantee that I will answer those questions, because I want to give first priority to the people who actually submit them on gregbrinkley.org/my question. So they will get first priority, and if there's time left over, I will deal with those questions on the chat. And tonight I will be dealing with questions in the chat as long as I'm able to do that. So feel free to submit questions at any time. I'm going to scroll back up and deal with those questions in the order that they appeared on the chat. All right. Now, the reason why I'm doing a lot of talking right now is because some of you may have met Akila, who is, I would call her my producer. she was moderating and producing the video that I did last month on the PRW update that I shared on the YouTube channel. She had an emergency and she's not able to be with us tonight. Unfortunately, she was looking forward to it, but she could not break away. So I got to run everything myself. So I'm going to ask y'all to bear with me, but Murphy's Law is in effect. But she says she's planning to be with us next month in July. So if you miss her tonight, make sure you, send something out there on chat. I'll let her know that everyone was looking out for her. Before I get started, just a few things, housekeeping things I want to get out of the way so we can get on to the questions. First of all, in chat, let's make sure we respect each other. We're not going to have any kind of issues related to being disrespectful or rude or offensive. We're not going to do that. As you know, in my comments on YouTube, I don't play that. If you say something faulty, you'll get blocked, you will get removed, you'll get reported, or I would just deal with it myself. And I want to make sure that the platform that I have on YouTube is going to be respectful and reputable. So I don't want to have people trying to be trolls and try to mess things up for people who really want to get answers for their situations. I'm here to help and just sincerely help. So let's respect each other. And I'm sure that those of you who are on here already will do so. Also, as a way of making some things known about what I do on the side, if you haven't gotten my book yet, the 10 disability commandments, the basic steps to eliminate your mistakes, fear, anxiety, stress, and confusion when you apply for Social Security disability. This is a very important book, in my opinion. This is my second time as an author writing this book. So this is a book that's going to walk you through the process. It's going to share with you some principles that I believe are the most important things you need to know as you prepare to apply for SSDI. So in order to do that and get that book, you just go to gregbrinkley.org/disability. Go there. The book's only $17. So, and I have an ebook as well as audiobook. I think that the audiobook is another link inside of there. So go ahead and get the book. It's going to be a really good thing. Hey, give it to somebody who you know needs the help. All right. Next. I have a master classes and the people who have been through my master classes will tell you off top, I wish I had this before I applied, or I wish I had this before I filled out the form, or the people who got this as they were completing the form said, hey, this was exactly what I needed to get me through. It took away all the anxiety that I had trying to complete this form. So I have several that are available. I'm actually in the process of working on the SSDI online application. Part 1 is almost done, and part 2 is coming. Those are going to be game changers because it's going to walk you through the actual online application for SSDI. So go ahead and get on those master classes. There are different price points, but I try to make sure that they are priced in a way where you can be able to purchase them and not feel the pinch. Also, when it comes to my channel, you can join as a member now. So you can join. All you have to do is click the join button on my videos or even on this live stream, there should be a join button, and there are 3 levels of access. This just gives you greater access to me, and depending upon the level, you have even greater exclusive access to me. I have members only live streams that will be available. I will give you shout outs on videos and live streams and YODA Live. I have customized emojis that I made myself, and they're popping if I made it myself. I also will have early access to videos. So you'll get the videos that I do every week. You'll get access to those before anyone else. So those are available based on the level that you subscribe to. So you click on the join button, it'll show you 3 levels: Yoda supporter, Yoda believer, and the Yoda inner circle. Also, as always, you can always find out from me what your chances are of being able to apply for Social Security disability. So all you gotta do is go to yoda.gregbrinley.org/yoda-case-review. And it's $97, but it's $97 well spent. If you have had a case review with me, put it in the chat, let people know how that went for you, how your experience was, give a testimonial on chat, and let people know, hey, Greg really gave me a lot of value. But don't let me tell you. I'm trying to help people on the chat let you know how that went. So the YODA case review is where you're going to get the details on what your chances look like as you apply for SSDI. All right, and show some love. See, this is why I need a killer. So show some love. I'm planning on some other things down the pike, and support is always welcome. So you can always do a super things inside the chat. So go ahead and hit that. Any amount, if it's 50 cents, I don't care. Anything will help, because I'm trying to get the word out to as many people as possible about what I do, and it would really be a great help. So give me that support when you can. All right, let's get to the live Q&A. All right, first question is from Peace and Love, at Peace and Love. And at Peace and Love sent this in, and Peace and Love asks, is mild thoracolumbar level curvature a qualifying condition for SSDI I think it's in addition to degenerative disc disease at 54 years and 2 months old? So here's the thing about musculoskeletal impairments. Musculoskeletal impairments are some of the most challenging ones to be allowed for, specifically if you're trying to meet a listing. So if you're trying to meet the medical listing in the blue book, the listing of impairments, it's a challenge because there's 4 different criteria to meet. But Peace and Love asks about mild thoracolumbar level curvature, and this condition is located in a mid to lower back, and there's some of curvature of the spinal cord. So I would say any condition that is considered mild by itself won't be enough to be considered a disabling impairment, because it's mild. And this, in most cases, depends on the situation, because in some situations, when you get to someone who may be applying for SSI, this person who is probably like 71, 72 years old trying to apply for SSI, they can apply for SSI disability, and all they need is a medically determinable impairment. It doesn't have to be severe, but that's neither here nor there, because the focus is on SSDI, and for SSDI, if you have degenerative disc disease, it really depends on how severe it is, and it's hard to say whether it will be a qualifying condition, because we don't have the full picture of the impairment. In other words, we don't have physical exams. We don't have the details on what was shown on the physical exams. We don't have any X-rays or MRIs to look at, or the reports that came as a result of those X-rays and MRIs. We don't have any indication of like muscle weakness or sensations or reflexes. We don't have any of that medical evidence that will help determine how severe the degenerative disc disease is, because it could be a mild level, it could be a moderate level, it could be a severe level, it could be a market level. We don't know. So the diagnosis itself, just the diagnosis by itself is not enough. You need to real evidence that shows how severe this is and whether it has enough evidence to meet or equal a medical listing. And like I said, it's a high bar to clear for musculoskeletal diseases. So usually what happens is they'll get the RFC, and the RFC is going to show how much a person can do with their conditions in an 8-hour day. So um so we don't know there's sciatica, we don't know if there's numbness, we don't know anything outside of the diagnosis. So the age is also a consideration, because it's about 10 months away from what I call the magic number, which is 55. And at 55, the rules begin to shift in a person's favor the older they get. So at 54 and 2 months old, they're still not on the borderline yet. So they would have to be closer to 55 to be on a borderline and have a borderline age situation pop up. So the evidence is really going to be the key, and the evidence has to bear out in showing that it's not just symptoms, but there are signs and there are findings that show that the degenerative disc disease, combined with a mild thoracolumbar level curvature, and give a picture of a person who is really going to be severe enough in their impairment to go to the listings and say, okay, this may be the listing. Or if it doesn't meet the listing, well, let's go to the RFC. I hope that makes sense. All right. Great first question. All right. Here's the second question. This is from @e.dorch. And E.Dorch asked this question: what if you applied for SSDI and disability retirement through your employer, and say you get approved for both? Which one will be priority? The one that approves you first and says thank you and you're welcome. All right. So I'll say it all depends on the terms of your long-term disability insurance through your employer. Now, some people get their own individual long-term disability, or LTD. Some go through their employer. But the terms of your LTD may require you to file for SSDI. So that's something that may be in the terms of you filing for your long-term disability through your employer. They may say, okay, well, you're applying for disability through us, but you also have to apply for it through SSDI as well. So you may have both going at the same time. That's not every LTD policy, but some do that. Now, one thing you should know is that the SSDI will not go down if you do apply for long-term disability through your employer, but your long-term disability through your employer may go down. It may be offset because you're getting SSDI, or it may require you to pay back your long-term disability if you get approved or allowed for SSDI. So you're getting your SSDI check, and the LTD policy may say, well, since you're getting SSDI, you need to pay us back what we already gave you in disability. So it really depends on the terms of your policy. It's really something that's out of my scope, but I think it's a really important question. That's why I'm dealing with it, because some people are filing for workman's comp, some people are filing for short-term disability. And these are important questions to deal with. So what I would say it's helpful to get your own attorney to help you deal with this, because the long-term disability, whether it's private or through your employer, they may offer representation for you, not only on the LTD side, but also on the SSDI side. But the problem with that is you don't know it's the one that they're providing you. So they may not be the most, how can I put it? They may not they have some level of interest in this because they're working for or on behalf of the LTD provider. So it's really important for you to get independent counsel, independent representation that's not tied to LTD. So that way you can get really great information on how this looks for you with applying for LTD and SSDI, and how your benefits are going to be impacted by that. Um, so like I said, just really look into your own representation rather than going through the LTD, who may be biased or may have some level of influence in terms of giving you information that may not be helpful, or they may not give you information because maybe they're trying to withhold it. I don't know. I'm just saying it's going to be to your advantage to get your own representation. All right. So you can apply for both, but you have to be aware of what the terms of your policy state about what you're going to get from SSDI and from your LTD policy, and making sure that you can get the maximum benefit that you can from both. And it could be a situation where you may not want to apply for LTD and you can just apply for SSDI. But again, that's something that you need to discuss with your family, your representation, your attorneys, things of that nature, so you can make the best situation for your best decision for yourself and for your family. All right. So that takes care of that question. So I'm gonna check in on the comments and see who else is here. I see Doug's here. All right, Doug. Yeah. Um, Good to see you, my friend. Um, and yeah, we've been in conversation hoping for you to get that favorable decision soon. So hopefully things are looking as good as we think they are. All right. Now, we got some questions in the chat. I'm going to start putting those in so we can all see those questions. All right. I have a question from Rip DT Tinea. Thank you for the question. Here's the question. I Googled a CE doctor who examined me, and I noticed in cases online he diagnosed a lot of those claimants with the same diagnosis he gave me. Seems very strange. I think it's very strange too. I think it's very strange too. I've worked on cases. Well, I'll back up and say this. For those who don't know, I do also have a background in Social Security disability fraud. That's extensive background. I've done reports of investigation, ROIs. I've done surveillance. I've done class action suits dealing with fraud, especially those dealing with CE doctors. And this is not to suggest that all CE doctors are bad. There are some great CE doctors out there who really do a great job. But then there are some CE doctors who get involved in what is called boilerplating. And boilerplating is the idea of the reports having the same wording, the same diagnoses, the same um, um, review of systems. They're all the same when you go from one person to the next. So it does create cause for concern for a person who is applying for SSDI, who gets the report or gets some kind of intel on the CE doctor, to suggest that maybe the CE doctor is not really doing their job the way they should. So, yeah, I agree with you. It does seem strange. Um, but I also want to ask you about the cases online. It sounds like it could be people who are on um, listservs or things of that nature. They're reporting what their experience is based on the reports. So I'm taking what you're seeing on face value, Rip DT. And what I'll say is this: if you have a concern about a CE doctor who examined you, and when you went to the um, examination, the CE appointment, and things didn't really seem on the up and up, you can always let the DDS know. They have a person in each DDS called a PRS is a personnel relations specialist, and this person is like the liaison between the DDSs and the CE doctors. They were responsible for looking for doctors in the area who can perform these CEs, and they are also involved in doing investigations to find out if these CE doctors should still be used by the DDSs, because these doctors are on contract with Social Security and with the DDSs to provide these exams. And if they're not on point with what they're doing, then they could be removed from the CE panel of doctors that the DDS has. So they would just not use them, and they say, well, we're going to discontinue the contract. We're going to end the contract. If it is a fraudulent situation where the CE doctor may be suspicious of fraud, then you can always report that to Social Security. You can go to SSA's website, and they have a section where you can actually report fraud. And I believe so strongly in fraud because the whole idea is SSA has zero tolerance for it. They're going to investigate almost on the level of CPS. You know, if a child is abused or mistreated or neglected by an adult, well, they're going to have a person who was a first responder will make the report, and they will send CPS or whoever the authorities are, and make sure that that situation is going to be taken care of before that person tries to skip town. You know, and the whole idea is the safety of the child. It's a similar situation with this. They want to make sure that this CE doctor is not going to be involved in something that is going to mess with the integrity of the claim and disadvantage the claimant from getting SSDI. Because if that person is going to the CE doctor hoping to get some real good information for their case, and the CE doctor's not providing that, then that hurts the claimant. So report that to the DDS. Hey, I didn't like this CE doctor. This is what happened. You may want to document that on paper and then mail it into the DDS. Or if you think there's really fraud involved, then you can report that to Social Security directly. So you have two options there. Either you can let the DDS know and they can remove that doctor from the panel, or at least investigate and see what is happening and really give that CE doctor a fair shot in explaining why they did what they did or how they did what they did. Or if you really think there's fraud involved, report it to Social Security. All right, great question. Great question. All right. And power. Here we go. What's the next question? Right here, MN54. My friend is, and thank you for the question, my MN54. Here's the question. My friend is 57 on SSDI. Will she get a CDR? She suffers from chronic pain and bilateral carpal tunnel. Well, the age is a consideration. Now, the impairments are not they're not situations technically based on the actual diagnoses that are going to be considered by Social Security as medical improvement not expected. So these are likely not a 7-year diary situations unless they were given a decision after age 51 and a half. If their decision on their claim was after age 51 and a half, which would make them older to 54 and a half in 3 years, then they may get the 7-year diary. And then after that, there may not be an opportunity to go through a CDR, because the older you get on SSDI, the chances of you going through a full medical CDR decrease. They may send you a CDR mailer, and the CDR mailer, and I have a video that deals with that, is a form that gives Social Security some information on what's going on with you right now. Have you gotten better? Have you gotten worse, or are your conditions still in the same condition? Um, and I asked a question about, who are you getting treated by, and are you going back to work? Do you have any vocational rehabilitation and things like that? But the bottom line is, in answering your question, it really depends on where you are with your impairments and how old you are. So age and medical conditions. Someone who's 57 may end up getting a CDR based on the diary that they got. It's not set in stone. It's not across the board that they won't get a CDR. It really depends on an individual case basis. So I would say in general, people who are 57 may be screened out. In other words, the DDS may go through those CDRs and see what's happening and say, okay, well, we're not going to do a CDR for this person because they're likely going to be an allowance. Or they may screen them out and say, well, based on the diary that they got for 7 years, probably not going to have a medical CDR. Or if the field office or the regional office catches it before it goes to the DDS, they may screen it out there using the CDR mailer. So it really depends on the situation. It's not something that's straight across the board. But I would say that the chances of CDRs happening at that age are beginning to decrease. So I would say just be mindful of, there could be a full medical CDR, but it may not necessarily get to that point. So I hope that answers your question. All right. Next, I see Stacy Thomas. Stacy Thomas has a question. Thank you for joining me this evening. Her question is, I'm feeling overwhelmed. He or she, I'm sorry, don't know. Stacy's a male or female. So I'm feeling overwhelmed. I went back to work, working from home. Done with my TWP, 9 months. SSD wants to remove me and stop benefits. I think it's wrong. I am still disabled, can't walk or stand. And I'm looking in the chat, and Stacy adds on here, I don't understand SSDI and why we can't work and receive my benefits. They want us living in poverty. Well, let me back up. I won't address that last sentence about what SSA wants, because that's a blanket statement, and not everyone in that Social Security feels the same way. All right. But let's answer your question. I think that's the most important thing. You can work and receive benefits at the same time. The challenge is, and I just did a video about this last month. The challenge is being able to make sure that your earnings don't go over two thresholds: the TWP threshold and then the SGA threshold. And thank you, Debbie. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for the thanks. I really appreciate that. Um, so with those two thresholds, the goal is to stay under both because with the TWP, the TWP is a trial work period. And after your first year of being on SSDI, you can go back to work. And that's when I recommend you do it, because if you do it before then, you're going to run into some problems. And we're not going to go down that road right now, unless the question comes up. But the point is, your trial work period, you have 9 months in a rolling 60-month period. All right. Um, and within those 60 months, you get 9 trial work period months to see if you can go back and work. And you have to stay under the threshold or the trial work period limit for earnings. For this year is $1,110, I believe, gross earnings. So if you're earning less than that, then you're not going to have an issue with burning through those trial work period months. Every month as you go over that TWP, you use up those months. So Stacy went through his or her 9 months of TWP, and now is in the extended period of eligibility, or the EPE. And with the EPE, the goal is to stay under the SGA limit, which is $1,550 gross earnings each month. So not take home, but gross each month, $1,550. If you're under that, then you're going to stay on benefits. If you're over that, then you're going to have your benefits cease, which means that the first cessation month, you'll still get a check. And then you'll have two grace period months where you get 2 more months of payments. And then after those 2 months, if you're still earning over SGA, they're going to cease your benefits. They're going to stop. But if you drop down back under SGA, they can restart your benefits without you having to go through a whole application to do it. So, so the key is staying under those thresholds. And the reason why is because you don't want to get to a point, unless you really want to work. And some people just want to work and they don't want to be on benefits. And they say, I'm going to work anyway. Okay. And they say, well, I just don't want to be on disability anymore. I want to work. And that's fine. For some people, that's fine. Others may need some time to try to see if they can get up to that point. Some need the help because they know they can't work full time or work like they used to before. So they need the SSDI and yet still want to augment that SSDI with some other earnings to help them stay afloat with life. And that's what SSA really is trying to do. But they don't want to make it a situation where someone's getting the full benefits and then they start making a whole lot more money. And that's not fair to the people who are still on benefits and can't work but may want to. So it's something that is used as a safeguard to guard against people who are trying to work and work more and then still get the SSDI. I don't think that's you, Stacy. I think that you're really trying to make sure that you can maintain a sense of livelihood for yourself to keep bills get paid and work and still get your SSDI. So I think that it really depends on you being able to report your earnings on a regular basis so the SSA can know where you are with your earnings so they can be able to determine whether your ability to stay under the limit has evaporated. So if you've gone over that limit, well, then they're going to start looking at your earnings. And keep this in mind, and this is something that I didn't deal with in the video, so y'all getting this for free. All right. The work CDR that I mentioned in the video is not always at the moment that you are reporting your earnings. So there's a trigger that happens, and they go back sometimes a few months to get your earnings, maybe 12, 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, and they're getting your earnings and looking at your earnings and seeing which months you did go over, which months you did not go over, where you went over, stayed under, and it may look like this, and there's a printout that shows um, when you're under SGA, you were on benefits this month, and next month you were on, and this month you were ceased, and then you had a grace period month, and then you were ceased, no earnings, and then you went under, and this shows that you were back under. So it's not a real time calculation of your earnings. It is going back in time in a lot of cases to look at what your earnings look like, which months were SGA months, which months were not SGA months, and they make the calculations and they determine when you did go over, when you did go under. Are you still entitled now, or are you need to be ceased right now? And even then, if you're still in your 36-month EPE, you still have the ability to get under SGA and have your benefits reinstated. So Stacy, it's really about staying under that threshold. If you're still in your extended period, your EPE, and if you get back under SGA, you'll get your benefits reinstated. So I hope that helped your hope answer your question. Um, so I hope that does help. All right, now Debbie D, who was so gracious to support the cause here at Disability Yoda. Debbie has a question. Here's the question: can someone just with spina bifida, myelomeningocele, nerves clumped together in back, tethered cord, can walk, but neuropathy, severe pain, and muscular atrophy with hip dysplasia alone, age 58? This is a lot. This is a lot of stuff. There's a lot here. Spina bifida is pretty. It's a pretty horrific condition. I'll say it like that. It spina bifida is pretty brutal. I'm not looking at the listings right now, but I would say that if you are 58 and you have this level of severity, you could have a case for a meat listing under the neuro listings. I have to pull that up because I think it's important to understand what the listings say about this. Um, and keep in mind that we're not getting into this as heavily as we would like because I don't have the full picture here. Don't know what your education is. I don't know what your work history is. And there's a lot that would be required for me to really get a handle on what's actually happening with not just your medical, but also the vocational, your onset, and things of that nature. There's a lot that can go into this. Um, but I will say that typically the neuro listings really require things such as disorganization of motor function in two extremities, either your both arms or both legs or one side arm and leg. Disorganization meaning you're not able to function and manipulate and walk effectively. You can't stand up from a seated position. Um, you can't balance while you're walking and things like that. So your function neurologically is really affected to the point where you're not able to to consistently keep yourself moving in an effective way in order to be able to work. So if you're 58, you're advanced age, and let's just say hypothetically, since I don't know your situation, um, oh, I have more. So GED and worked 41 years. Oh, and I wonder if those 41 years were in the same industry or at the same job. That might be a consideration. Thank you, Stacy. I appreciate it. Thank you for the contribution. So it's okay, Debbie. Just understand that a person who is 58, oh, clerical, okay. Um, it really depends on where the neurological function is being lost, whether it's in your upper extremities or lower extremities or on one side. Like someone who has a stroke, it could affect their lower body, it could affect their upper body, or it could affect one side of their body. So if you're talking about lower, um, which is what you just said, then it could be something that may allow for work in a sedentary position. Um, but I think there's going to be an understanding from the medical records the level of effect neurologically, because you're still going to need to walk at some point. You're still going to need to stand at some point if you're working. You're going to need at least 2 hours. But if you are significantly limited in your standing and walking to significantly less than 2 hours, then this is getting into what's called less than sedentary um, work or a less than sedentary RFC. And I have a video that dealt with that. Um, so if you're less than sedentary RFC at 58, then more than likely you're going to be an allowance regardless of the work that you did. Because less than sedentary is really talking about you're really not able to sustain um, work that involves you significantly standing and walking for 2 hours. I'm only specifically dealing with this one because of your spina bifida being affecting your lower extremities. So if you cannot stand and walk significantly more than less more let me get this right. If you're standing and walking is limited to significantly less than 2 hours in an 8-hour day, that will be an allowance because there's going to be a certain amount of standing required in a job, regardless. So if you have that significant limitation in your standing and walking, that will be an allowance. And it really doesn't matter whether your job is clerical or not, because you're going to need to stand at some point. You're going to need to walk at some point in your job. Okay. I hope that made sense because I think it's important to really um, understand the RFCs, the residual functional capacity forms, and I have videos that deal with that. Um, yeah, how they play into your ability to work. And I'm going to have some videos coming up dealing with passive relevant work, which are going to be important. And it just had an update on the National Register about passive relevant work that I'll deal with in the video. Okay. Rip DT, I think you should have stopped seeing patients a very long time ago. Well, probably so, probably so. But like I said, if you really feel that strongly about it, then let the DDS know about that. All right, JC, how's it going, JC? Got a question. The question is, can moving from one Social Security region to another Social Security region increase the chances of a CDR? Another YouTube channel said that making such a move can increase chances of CDRs. That's an interesting question. I can see why that other video said that, because it really depends on the region and what the region is doing. I worked in Region 9, which is the region that covers California, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, another state here and there. Um, and when I was working in the regional office, we worked on claims there. Um, we did support for DDSs there. Um, and the DDSs in that region are also working on CDRs. So, so to answer the question, I think what you have to understand is this: there are processes in the regional office that are managed by certain um, departments. Um, I'm not going to go into what those departments are because it just be confusing to you. But understand this: there are departments that specifically work on CDR mailers. As a matter of fact, the branch that I worked in inside the regional office, we also did CDR mailers. I worked on CDR mailers. So we're looking at CDRs, full medical CDRs, which typically are worked by the DDSs, and CDR mailers, which are worked on at the regional office. So depending upon the type of CDR you're talking about, that would determine the chances, because it may not necessarily mean that the chances increase per se. It's really about things like workload. Is the workload moving in a way where the CDRs are being processed on time, whereas another region may be behind in working on those cases, and it may not be getting to the CDRs when the diary expires. So let's say that your case, your CD, your status being on the rolls meant that your diary is going to expire in July of this year. So 2024, July 2024. Um, Depending upon the region, one region might be on time by saying, okay, we got the trigger that shows, okay, this one's about to expire. So we need to start the process of sending out forms so this person can begin their full medical CDR. Another region might be backlogged in their CDRs, and there may be a wait, there may be a delay in working on the case, even though the diary expires in July 2024. That process might not be happening right away because of the workload. I hope that's making sense. Even what was talked about earlier, late last month, I had this post where I was talking about how for the rest of the fiscal year, the focus of the DDSs is to focus on initials and recons, and the CDRs are going to get shelved. So what that means is across the entire nation, all CDRs are likely going to be shelved. CDRs that have not begun to be processed yet. If it's already assigned to somebody, then they're going to continue to focus on working that. But if it hasn't been assigned, it hasn't been routed to a DDS, they're not going to be pushing those. That means that if July 2024 is the diary in, well, that case is going to have to wait until the fiscal year's over, which is September 30th. And then maybe October, they open that floodgate again of CDRs and they can start working on them. So I hope that answers your question. It really depends on things like workload, who's working on the cases, which region or which DDS office is working on them, what kind of CDR you're talking about, whether it's a full medical or a CDR mailer. Because there are CDR mailers that are in the pipeline right now. There's a ton of them. I guarantee you that. And they're not being worked on. And there may be a push at some point. But really depends on certain factors. So it's not straight across the board. All right. Stacy says, if I continue to work, will it be hard to return to SSDI in the near future. I make a lot. I'm blessed working from home. Yeah, you are blessed. You are blessed, very blessed, definitely, to work from home and still get that. But I will say this: if it won't be hard in this sense, if you are earning a lot on your job, you're likely going to be terminated after your EPE ends. Now, if you have an issue where you are not able to continue working after your termination, there's still what's called expedited reinstatement that gives you a space and time to still um, say, "Hey, I'm still disabled. I tried to work. I was terminated, but this came back," or "I'm still struggling with this, and it's making it difficult to work." Expedited reinstatement gives you another time period to continue your benefits, to get back on benefits, to restart them without doing a new application. So I hope that answers your question. All right. Fingerprinting gurus. Yes, sir. He asked this question: how do SGA get determined for self-employed? I knew you were going to ask this question because you asked me this a while back the other day on one of the videos. How does SGA get determined for self-employed people? Um, Self-employed people have a whole different standard. Um, if someone who is employed, then it's pretty um, it's not as challenging to figure out because you can get the earnings, you can get work, the pay stubs, things like that, to figure out what your SGA is. When you are self-employed, that it gets a little interesting because, and I really want to do a video on this because um, it really involves being able to put a dollar amount in the manner of speaking, on the types of things that you did, on the types of services that you provided, on the level of involvement in your business. If you are running this business, if you are, LLC or a sole proprietor, whatever the case may be, there's a certain percentage that you have to be involved in the job, in your business, in order for it to be considered SGA. So to look at things like how involved you are in your job, what you're still required to do on your job, the level of involvement, the number of hours that you work on your job, the um, the income that you have on your job. And they have these formulas. So the field offices have these formulas that they use to determine, based on the information that they get through a form called the 820, the SSA 820, which is a work activity form for self-employed people. They use that information to figure out what it is that you did on your job, what it is that you did not do. Are there subsidies involved, and are there work expenses that are related to your impairment? And they calculate all this, and then they can go through and figure out on each month what your earnings were looking like and whether these earnings are over or under SGA. So it's pretty complicated. I did not do that in the DDSs because the DDSs typically don't develop work activity that heavily. There is a level where the DDS examiner may do it, but there comes a time when the DDS examiner says, okay, this is really above my pay grade. So I'm going to need to send this back to the field office. So the field office can be able to figure this out, because this is something I'm focusing on the medical side of the claim. And I'm not in a position, nor do I have the tools or the formulas or the time to be able to figure this out. So what the DDS examiner will do, they will make a decision called a no determination, an ND, a no determination, and it will send the case back to the field office specifically for SGA development. So the field office will develop the case for SGA. They make a determination, and if the field office says, okay, based on our work, and they sent in the work activity form, we got that back, and we looked at everything, we crunched all the numbers, and this person was not working over SGA, they send the case back to the DDS, and the DDS takes over right where they left off. So this is not a final decision. They're just saying we're going to kick this back to the field office so you guys can figure out the SGA issue. We ain't got that kind of time. When you figure it out, let us know whether you're going to deny this person on technical grounds because they were over SGA, or if the person was under SGA and you can move forward with the medical adjudication of the claim, send it back to the DDS, and the DDS can start working on it again. So, so I think for the purposes of what I do now, I think it's important for people like you, fingerprinting, to understand what is involved for a person who is self-employed and staying under SGA. So that might actually require a podcast. So I might have to get contacts and see who I can get to discuss this, because this is going to require a real fine hand, someone who really understands the process. So what I was saying is this: I'm making a note, fingerprint guru, and making sure that we get to this. And I think it's really worth the podcast with someone who has done this work before. And I have a couple of people that I have in mind who may be able to help with that. So, so thanks for bringing that up again. I was gonna start calling you Guru because I'm gonna go through the fingerprint thing. You're a guru, man. So I'm gonna say podcast for self-employed SGA, and we'll get to the bottom of this. So I'll keep you posted on the comments to let you know how that's working. But I have a couple of people in mind that may help with that. All right. And I see another question by Guru. I have end-stage pulmonary sarcoidosis. Oh, wow. I have end-stage pulmonary sarcoidosis, 47 with a bachelor's degree. I'm 7 months. Worked criminal justice, is firefighting and retail management. If it's end-stage, sarcoidosis, yeah, I think I really need to do a video on respiratory disorders. Sarcoidosis is pretty serious. And I would say that if it is severe, if it's end stage, it actually may be listing level. But the only thing is there's no listing for sarcoidosis. So directly that says 3.05 sarcoidosis. We don't see that. But there are other impairments under the respiratory disorders that sarcoidosis may fall under. I believe at one point there was a listing for sarcoidosis, but it's not there anymore. So I'm looking at the listings right now, and I think it could fall under something else that's related to sarcoidosis that could be a mixed listing situation. So I think it's important to look at your situation. No, I'll show you have full initial phase. My specialist completed the medical limitations, turned into SSA medical limitations. I'm not sure what that medical limitations is, but I'll just say this, Guru. It's really important to make sure that your medical records are in order, and I'm sure they are, because you seem, with your background, I'm sure you're pretty detailed about these types of things. So I would say this could be an area where it may be listing level criteria. It may meet listing level criteria. How it does it, I don't know. I need to look at the listings a little bit more closely um, to do that. So I think there's a good shot that even with what you have going on, it may be listing level. All right. We're gonna take one or two more questions. Looking through, just making sure I don't miss anything. Let's see. Jerry Connor has a question. I just want to make sure that I get all the questions. Um, so if you have a question in here that I don't see that hasn't been asked yet, or maybe I skipped it, put it back in the chat. Let me know. Let me deal with Jerry Connor. Hey, Jerry, good to see you. And here's Jerry's question. I'm 54. Now, I believe you're talking about rheumatoid arthritis, carpal tunnel in both hands, elbow nerve damage, severe cervical spine nerve damage. I believe that's spondylosis and neuropathy. I was denied at the initial and recon. Will the new work rule? I'm thinking me be asking, will the new work rule help my case at step 5? It could, but the thing is, um, oh, um, oh, that's another question. Sorry. So Jerry, it could help at step 5. But the new work rule is really dealing with step 4. Step 4 is really where the new work rule comes in, where you're dealing with the reduction of the work period from 15 years to 5 years. So you didn't put what work you've done in the past, but um, let's say that you haven't worked in the last 5 years, and you're 54, and you have all these um, musculoskeletal issues well as um, rheumatoid arthritis, which is either going to be using the musculoskeletal or the immune disorder listings. Um, it could help a step 4 if you don't have work. If you do have work, well, it depends on the type of work that you did, and whether your work involved your upper extremities, your arms, your hands, and whether it's going to impact your ability to finger or handle, which is gripping or grasping. So it really depends on the type of work, the industry, the job that you had, or the jobs that you had within the last 5 years. Since you were denied at the initial, I wonder what your um, denial was based on. I'm trying to read between the lines, and I'm assuming that it has something to do with your past work, because that's probably the reason why you're asking this question. Step 5 is dealing with the grid, and at 54, um, Jerry, use GC 24 styles, or is it a different person? Oh, it's a different person. Sorry. So step 5 is the grid, Jerry. So at 54, you're probably going to need to be a sedentary or less. If you're light, if you have a light RFC, you're going to need to have unskilled work, and your education would have to be less than 12 months. So, big one, I see you. It's up, man. Don't worry about it. You made it. I'm good to see you, my friend. All right. Good to see you, big one. No penalty for being late. So, Jerry, I think it's really going to need for me to understand this. One, what kind of work did you do in the last 5 years? Number 2, what did the RFC say at your initial level? What limitations did the RFC give you? If you got your disability case file, you'll be able to get to what's called the disability determination explanation, the DDE, and it will show the RFC in there. You'll be able to understand what limitations the MC gave you that ultimately led to the denial as a part of the case. So, so I think it's those two things would really help to understand that. But depending, but it almost sounds like the level of rheumatoid. Oh, you drove a tow truck with no CDL. Well, the CDL is not, in my mind, is not that significant in terms of the work that you did. You were not commercial, but you drove a tow truck, probably like doing like emergency road service, something like that. That would probably be medium to heavy work. So you would be able to go back to that. If that's all you did in the last 5 years, um, then it sounds like the grid was what kept you from being denied. And my thinking is they probably gave you a light RFC because if your rheumatoid was not significant enough to be able to meet a listing or equal a listing, my assumption is I'm just taking a stab in the dark here is probably a light RFC, or they could have given you a sedentary RFC at 54 because uh, yeah, it's really hard to say because I don't know what your RFC is. So if I knew what the RFC is, since I know your work, I know your age, you're not 55 yet, but if you're sedentary, you may be on the borderline of an allowance with the grid. If we're using 202, no, 201, 14, 201, 14 would be closely approaching advanced age, 12th grade, semi-skilled work, and it would determine whether your work was transferable at that point. So there's a possibility they could have said your work was transferable. So without getting the clarity that I need, it's going to be hard for me to understand what it really took to deny you at the initial level. So that's a challenge. That's really a challenge. But I will say that if your impairments were severe enough to meet a listing, it wouldn't be an issue. So they had to look at your work. All right. So the work rule could help you at step 4. Step 5, it won't because we're dealing with the grid. Hope that answered your question. Oh, they said that they couldn't do your past work. Okay. Well, then they used the grid, and the grid was what denied you. As once I just had a call with someone yesterday, and he said, "Man, they gridded me. I'm gonna have to make a T-shirt out of that. It's gonna be on the website, on the channel someplace. They gridded me, and he got denied. So, so you got gridded. Yeah, I'm not trying to make light of what you're dealing with, but I think there's um potential, and also how far are you away from being 55? That's another question. How far are you away from being 55? Because if you're closer, if you're within 6 months or less of reaching age 55, then we're having a different conversation. All right. So let me move on. Um, so GC24 Styles, how you doing? Good to see you on here. Here's a question. I was denied a step 5 and given a reduced light work RFC, now almost age 53, stage 4 renal disease, PTSD, um, mitral valve regurgitation, and neuropathy. Hmm. Are you on dialysis for stage 4 renal? That's the question I have. If you're on dialysis, that's an automatic allowance. If you're not on dialysis, then the light RC wouldn't allow you, which is why they denied you. Um, and regardless of the work that you did, the rules would not allow you. That's the thing about it. The grid wouldn't you got gridded. Man, I'm about to, that's gonna work, man. That term, you got gridded. You got gridded. LRFC is not gonna allow you at 53, regardless. You would need to um be unskilled work, and I believe also limited or less education, 11 years or less. Um, so, but I see your follow up question here. It was already been determined. No past jobs. No past jobs. But VE provided 3 jobs. Oh yeah, but wait, I'm not understanding you. Did you work within the last 5 years? GC 24. Did you work within the last 5 years? Because if you did not, then it still wouldn't make a difference on the grid. Oh, I see. The no was from answering that question. Okay, I'm sorry about that. So the grid would still not make a difference. You would still be a denial on the um, on the grid. Um, I'm pulling up the grid now, so y'all can see it. Okay, so hold on a second. Akila, I need you. Don't tell her I said that. Don't tell her I said I need you. Then they come out there. But with the grid, um, you would really need um, this is a light work. You're closely approaching advanced age. You would have to have unskilled or no work, and either be illiterate or unable to communicate in English. So you got gridded because based if you even had no work, if you had uh if you got to the 8th grade, you still be a denial. You would have to be um illiterate or unable to communicate in English in order to be an allowance on the grid. So regardless of your work, you will still be not disabled all the way down here. So you didn't have enough. Now, once you get to advanced age, then things change. So if you had no work in the last 5 years, that's Rule 20204, um, which could determine a directed decision of disabled, or if you had skilled work or semi-skilled work, if the work was not transferable, then you would be disabled. So I hope bringing this up actually helps you understand this more clearly. Um, so regardless of that, and I see your question. I'm at recon now. I'm a new claim, but now I have proven mental health with meds now. Yeah, if your mental health was significant enough to keep you from working, then that may change things. But they're going to look at the physical and mental together and see, okay, physical, he was a light. That's not going to help you get on benefits at this point with your age. You met both profile, age, education, and work experience. If you add mental in there, you're going to need to have an adverse MRFC at the very least that keeps you from working. So an adverse meaning there's no work that you can do because of your mental health challenges, your mental health impairments. It's going to be really need to be more really severe enough to be adverse. All right. So I hope that answers your question. All right. I'm stretching myself here, people. I'm gonna take the question from Big One and a question from Draco, and then we're gonna shut it down after that. So Big One says, "Will the CEDR news extend into next year?" No, it's going due to the end of the fiscal year, which is September 30th. So the fiscal year runs from October 1st to September 30th. That's the federal fiscal year. So from now until September 30th, that's when the CR news is in play. After September 30th, October 1st hits, they're going to look at this again and see whether they're going to continue this or begin to work CDRs again. Okay. And Big One, I see in the question, when do you normally get your CDR paperwork? Is it in the same month that you got approved or just any time in the year? No, you get your CDR paperwork when you when your record is triggered for the CDR. So when the diary begins to get closer to ending, that's when they start preparing to do the CDR typically. They'll send your forms out at that point. All right. Now, Draco's last question, Draco. Can you explain secondary in listing 3.04C? If I match this listing, is it an easy win? Well, let's pull it up and see. It's the last question of the evening, everybody. And thank you so much for joining me on the first edition of YODAA Live. So, Draco, I just happened to be in the respiratory listings. So look at that. And 3.04 is dealing with cystic fibrosis. So let me pull this up on the screen. And we'll take a look at it. All right. So here we have cystic fibrosis 3.04, and he says 3.04C. So let's go down to the C section. Here's A. Gets into the pulmonary function test stuff. Here's B. And here's C. Now, C says spontaneous pneumothorax secondary to CF, requiring chest tube placement. So secondary meaning your cystic fibrosis caused the spontaneous pneumothorax. All right. So it's not that you have spontaneous pneumothorax for some other reason or caused by something else. 3.04C is saying that your spontaneous pneumothorax was caused from the cystic fibrosis. That's what it's saying. That your cystic fibrosis brought on the pneumothorax. And this pneumothorax requires chest tube placement. So that's the other part of it. All right. So to answer your question, would this be an easy win? Yes. If you met these conditions for 3.04C, if you met this criteria, this is an automatic allowance. It's an open and shut case. Your records have to show that you have a diagnosis of cystic fibrosis, that cystic fibrosis resulted in you having spontaneous pneumothorax. And then this spontaneous pneumothorax required a chest tube placement. That's an easy win. That's a slam dunk. All right. So I hope that helped you understand this. So if you meet that listing, it's a slam dunk, point blank. But you have to meet those criteria. And that's why the listings are so detailed. It's not just having a diagnosis. There are other things that are built into those listings criteria that you also have to meet in each one of those points. All right. Oh, Draco has follow up here real quick. And everybody, this is Draco. The last question for Draco. It's continuation. 31, highest level of school is 8th grade, and you work your artwork and Walmart is previously work. It doesn't matter. If you meet the criteria for that listing, we don't the Social Security doesn't care about your work at that point because you met the definition of disability as it is in the listings. So if you meet that criteria for 3.304C, your work doesn't matter, your age doesn't matter, your education doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's sequential evaluation. So step one, are you making SGA or you're not? Great. You move on to step two. Step two is, do you have a severe impairment? Yes, you do. You have cystic fibrosis, and it's severe. It meets duration, 12 months, or it can be projected to 12 months, and it's an MDI, medically determinable impairment. So step two, you meet that. Step three, does it meet a listing? If it meets the listing, they stop developing and they allow you. Step four, step five deals with your past work, other work. That doesn't matter. If you can be allowed at step three, which is the first point where you can be allowed in most cases, almost every case, they stop development. The one thing about DDSs is when they have enough to allow you, they stop developing. They don't continue working on the case. Oh, we haven't got these records yet, or oh, we're going to get this form. No, if we have enough, if the DDS has enough to allow you, they stop what they're doing and they allow you. Period. There's no other need to go any further than that. All right. Okay. Now, y'all, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Just as a recap of the things that I would like to have you help me come alongside with you in your disability claim for SSDI. My book, The 10 Disability Commandments, and this is $17. All you gotta do is go to gregbrinkley.org/disability. You do that there. I also have the Disability Yoda Master Classes, different price points, different videos, and video master classes. I walk you through each one step by step, question by question, line by line. I break it all down for you. It's worth the money. It's worth the money, and you're gonna get a lot of value because you get access to these videos for 12 months. All right. So you just go to gregbrinkley.org masterclasses, and that's where you access that. All right. Also, I have a Yoda case review. You go to Disability Yoda. gregbrinkley.org/Yoda case review. And you get on my calendar. Here's a link in the chat to sign up for that. Make sure that you have that available. Also, you can go to my channel, and this is why I need Aquila. Join our channel as a member. There's 3 levels: Yoda believer, Yoda supporter, and Yoda inner circle. Become a member. There's some exclusive perks, early access to my videos, emojis, and shout outs on videos and chats, and members only live streams. Things like that are available depending upon the level of involvement that you want to support me in. So all I got to do is click the join button anywhere on my channel, either on one of the videos or on a channel homepage. That will let you know the levels and the price points where you can become a member of my channel. All right. And you can always leave a super thanks at any time, not just here in the chat, but you can also do it on my videos as well. So if it's helped you, if it's blessed you, if it helped clear up some things that you had questions on, and you want to support me in getting the word out to other people who really need the help from an insider, a true insider for Social Security disability, the only one that I know of, one I've seen, the only one I could do it the way that I do it. Not bragging, I'm just saying I know the ins and outs. I know how the sausage is made. Go ahead and show me some love, and I really would help. It really would help me. I really would appreciate your support. All right. Now, if you have questions that I did not get to, all you need to do is, it's not too late, is go to I'm going to type it in the chat so that way you have access to it if you have a question that hasn't been addressed yet. And that is gregbrinkley.org/my question. You go there, you can submit your question, and I'll have it ready to go as first priority next month. Okay. Now, I will say that I'm not going to be doing as many comments as I used to. I'm still going to try to do comments on videos whenever I can. But I want to help you understand that you're going to get more value coming to the YODAA Live, because not only will you get my question, will get your question answered by me, but you'll hear other people with questions getting answered as well. And it's really hard to sift through each video and try to get the questions, and that it just gets too confusing. So I wanted to have a Q&A where you can ask your question, and not only you get your question answered, but you also may have a question that you might have had before but didn't think about, that someone else is asking, and you can get that answered as well. So it's helping a lot more people in one shot with this YODAA Live. So tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your cousins, tell your play brothers and sisters and aunties, and tell your neighbors. I said neighbors already. Tell your enemies, tell your work, people who are former co-workers and people at church. Spread the word, not just about YODAA Live. I want people to show up in YODAA Live, but help them to show up for the videos as well. And I will have some other things coming down the pike to help you all and others understand this SSDI process and get the help that they need, so they don't have to come out of pocket with an attorney. $7,200 at the maximum, or 25% of your back pay. What I'm giving you is a fraction of the cost, and you're getting a whole lot more. So I encourage you, take me up on what I'm offering. I have testimonials, people who have worked with me. I've worked with, rather, 'cause I'm working with them. They're not working with me. Harrison was on earlier, working with him and his situation. I saw my friend Doug Miller. He was on here as well. I'm working with him. Fingerprinting Gurus, I've chatted with him on comments. So there are people who I'm helping right now. Big One is another person I've been answering questions. So I'll let other people talk about what I do for them, more than me saying that and tooting my horn more than I need to. Because if you don't toot your own horn, it ain't getting tooted. All right, but I still want to make sure people understand that this is real for me, and people are getting value and getting help. All right, that's it. I'm done. It's an hour and 45 minutes, but I'm sure it's an hour and 45 minutes worth it. So I will see you on the other side. Next video is coming up next week, and the next video is going to be dealing with how to speak SSA language. All these acronyms and all these things related to Social Security. Okay, what are they talking about? What these letters mean? That's what the next video is going to be on. So so ready to get it? So looking forward to seeing you again, and hope to see you next month on YODAA Live. Take care. God bless. Have a great evening.